Donald Trump woke up triggered this morning and launched a series of Truth Social tantrums in response to the increasing backlash and public humiliation he's facing as a direct consequence of his disastrous Alaska summit with Vladimir Putin. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, Donald Trump is not happy because he's been humiliated on the global stage, and he's not liking the fact that people are pointing this out. So let's take a look at his Truth Social rants from just this morning. He says, first, it's incredible how the fake news violently distorts the truth when it comes to me. There is nothing I can say or do that would lead them to write or report honestly about me. I had a great meeting in Alaska on Biden's stupid war, a war that should have never happened. Well, again, before we move on to the other subsequent Truth Social posts, let's just talk about this because Trump promised during the 2023 and 2024 campaign cycles that he could snap his fingers and end Biden's stupid war in 24 hours after inauguration. He failed spectacularly. He set the standard. He campaigned on that particular promise. He solicited votes contingent on that promise, and he failed. There have been about 208 24-hour periods, or about 208 days into the second Trump administration, and he has failed spectacularly. And we've done videos about the Alaska summit and how it was so disastrous that even Fox News reporters on the ground, Fox News reporters, were calling it out, saying that Trump was steamrolled by Putin. So yes, it's perfectly fair for people to criticize you about this. And no, it's not dishonest or distorting to say you got played. And maybe a peace deal or a ceasefire will come down the road. There's no evidence of that. Perhaps it will. But you promised to end this war in 24 hours. You failed, and the summit was a failure. Nothing wrong with pointing that out. He goes on to say, if I got Russia to give up Moscow as part of the deal, the fake news and their partner, the radical left Democrats, would say I made a terrible mistake and a very bad deal. That's why they're the fake news. Also, they should talk about the 6 wars, etc. I just stopped, MAGA. Well, you haven't gotten Russia to concede anything, much less Moscow, the capital, right? You haven't gotten them to concede anything because there's no deal. There's no ceasefire. You went on Fox News afterwards to try to spin this with Sean Hannity, but you effectively admitted defeat. We did a video about this where he says, it's up to Zelensky now. Zelensky's got to make a deal. There's no deal. I grade the meeting. It was a 10 out of 10 in the sense that, Putin and I got along. But you failed. This idea that if I do this, the fake news, the Democrats would criticize it. It's a bullshit premise because you have not done anything of any significance whatsoever. You just don't like the fact that people are criticizing you for your failure, your high-profile failure. Now, with respect to this notion that Trump, stopped 6 wars, PolitiFact has done a great write-up on this because I'm sure you've seen Trump boast about this. And again, he refuses to bring the receipts whatsoever. But as PolitiFact notes, it's mostly false. So it breaks it down in vivid, excruciating detail, but we'll go down just to the conclusion itself to give you the Cliff Notes versions, okay? Our ruling. Trump has said he stopped 6 wars since he took office in late January. There's a lot of uncertainty around Trump's role in these conflicts. Experts said he deserves some credit for deals that ease conflicts between Cambodia and Thailand, Israel and Iran, and India and Pakistan, although some leaders dispute his role, including India's own leadership. They're like, Trump had nothing to do with the ceasefire brokered between India and Pakistan. Okay, so at best, he deserves some credit for 3 conflicts. The U.S. was involved in a temporary peace deal between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda that experts said is significant but shaky. In a conflict between Egypt and Ethiopia, there is no solution on the table. And with Kosovo and Serbia, there's little evidence that a potential war was brewing. Trump's statement contains an element of truth, but it ignores critical facts that would give a different impression. We rate it mostly false because, again, he's just full of shit. He's a liar. Then the third and final Truth Social tantrum that he had this morning. Big progress on Russia. Stay tuned. President DJT. So he also had this, actually. He posted something else at Bella. Is he watching like Twilight or something? What are you talking about? Bella Swan. Listen, Bella Swan, I was honestly Team Edward. But maybe she could have gone Team Jacob. I mean, Jacob and Edward, they're great. They're 100%. Some would say that Jacob is the best werewolf. And Bella, what were you thinking not going with Jacob? Like, Yashar Ali and others are pointing out, what the hell is he talking? Did he just have a stroke while, cranking out a Truth Social post while, taking a shit? What is he doing? It's Commander-in-Chief. It's the most powerful man in the world. It's really sad. Now, in terms of the backlash that Trump is facing for his disastrous summit, I should also note it's not coming exclusively from the left or from the Democratic Party. The Wall Street Journal, a conservative publication, co-owned by Rupert Murdoch, the founder of Fox News. So this is a sister publication of Fox News. They're not pleased with how Trump has handled this. A Wall Street Journal correspondent delivers brutal summary of Trump-Putin summit. Wall Street Journal chief foreign affairs correspondent Yaroslav Trofimov unloaded a scathing summary of Donald Trump's Alaska summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin as he mocked the White House's pivot on ceasefire demands. We'll take a look at that. Oh, here it is. Drag it over here. Trump, Vladimir, stop the killing. Putin, yet. Trump, I want a ceasefire. Putin, yet. Trump, ceasefire in 2 weeks or I will impose sanctions. Putin, let's meet. Trump, okay, no sanctions until the meeting. Putin in Alaska, yet. No ceasefire. I still have the same demands as in 2022. Trump, oh well, let's forget about a ceasefire or sanctions. It was a very great and successful day. Putin, with his, sunglasses emoji. It's a chief foreign affairs correspondent for the conservative Wall Street Journal. Clearly not impressed. With respect to the Wall Street Journal editorial board, they're not impressed either. No Ukraine ceasefire from Putin. The Russian gets his photo op but makes no apparent concessions at his summit with Trump. Donald Trump tried to put the best spin he could Friday on his summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and the mutual pleasantries were effusive. But the substantive news from the meeting seems to be that Putin refuses to end his war in Ukraine, and he won't even agree to a temporary ceasefire. The killing that Trump rightly abhors will apparently continue. Trump was full of praise for Putin and said the two, quote, made some great progress today, although, quote, we didn't get there to an agreement. He offered no details about the, quote, progress and announced no end to hostilities. He said they agreed on many things, but not the biggest areas, which presumably means a ceasefire and any compromises on Putin's war aims. There will be some cautionary relief in Europe that Trump didn't announce a deal with Putin that would present them as fait accompli. Instead, Trump said he would call European allies and Ukrainians Volodymyr Zelensky to brief them on what happened in Alaska. There's no deal, he said, until there's a final deal, which suggests he is at least listening to what Ukraine needs to feel secure if an armistice is to be reached. Putin, for his part, gave nothing away on Ukraine. He offered his familiar line that the root causes of the war must be addressed before it can end. By this, he means blaming Ukraine for wanting to determine its own future as part of the European Union with security help from NATO countries. It was notable that Putin spent most of his soliloquy in front of the press flattering Trump, endorsing the U.S. president's view that the war would never have happened if Trump had been in office in 2022, and extolling the possibilities for U.S.-Russia business ties. With his economy struggling, Putin wants financial relief. In that sense, the Russian achieved one of his major goals from the summit, which is the start of his rehabilitation as a world leader. The summit ended his isolation from the West, and he gave up nothing for it. He also appears to have gained more time to continue bombing Ukrainian cities and slowly taking more territory. It isn't clear what Trump gained. He told the press he would be angry if no ceasefire emerged from the parley, but Trump showed no peak afterward. Perhaps there was some quiet concession that Trump will take back to Ukraine, and if we will know that soon enough. If so, we will know that soon enough. If there was nothing but niceties in a Putin stonewall, then Trump will have to decide if he will follow through on the red lines he's drawn. On Wednesday, he'd promised very severe consequences if Putin didn't agree to end the war. Will he now move to impose sanctions on such buyers of Russian oil as China and Turkey as he has India? Or will he agree to a second summit, as Putin seems to want, in the hope that next time will be different? Trump's desire to be a peacemaker is laudable, but in Vladimir Putin, he is dealing with a hard man who has his eyes fixed on conquering Ukraine sooner or later. Putin will only bend from that goal if he sees a unified West determined to deny him that victory and willing to impose severe costs if he continues his march of death in Ukraine. So the conservative Wall Street Journal, not pleased by this. Nor is the National Review, an even more conservative publication, which is even more pro-Trump. They're not happy with this particular deal either. It's just a total disaster every which way. And this is why Trump is lashing out the way that he has. He's like, why aren't people just telling me how great and wonderful I am? It's like, bro, you failed by your own terms. You failed to resolve this in 24 hours. You failed to resolve this in 24 hours since for a 208, 209, 24-hour set of periods. You've touted the summit. You said that if you didn't get a ceasefire, you'd be angry, you'd be disappointed. You didn't get a ceasefire. You said that if the talks went well, that there would be a joint press conference in which you and Putin both answered questions, and that if it didn't go so well, you would stay and answer questions and send Putin back to Russia. Instead, none of that even happened. It was so bad that you both left without answering questions. I mean, it was just a stunning failure every which way. And that's not to rule out the possibility of future success. I think anything is possible. But I think it's perfectly fair and doesn't change the fact that Trump has failed Heretofore, he failed at the beginning. He has failed now. And all of his bullshit posturing, the war would have never started. The war has escalated on Trump's watch. Bombing campaigns, acts of aggression by Russia have actually staggeringly increased, according to analyses, since Trump took office, meaning Putin feels emboldened, more emboldened, to attack Russia under Trump than under Biden. Totally torpedoing, pun intended, Trump's claim that he intimidates Putin. It's just he got played. He obviously got played. And maybe something will happen in the future, but for right now, Trump is an abject failure. It's perfectly reasonable to point that out. And that's why Trump is so triggered, because people are pointing it out. Let's continue to do that. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.